Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of GGS2 Case 5. We are in the midst of needing to present some piece of evidence to prove that Gregson was on the RFS bar block on the day, on October 31st, when he was supposedly murdered, or killed, and stuff. So, before we can do that, though, I have to actually do some examining. So let's go let's look at the trunk. So that's awfully suspicious and concerning. That is... okay, let's not worry about it yet. Let's go ahead and just get on this. Let's try opening the trunk. I don't really like what this is indicating here at all. This looks like a sword cut. This looks like a broken blade tip right here that's at the end. But we are not looking at that at the moment. Yeah, gonna look at this instead. Looks like there's something inside this trunk. It's a passport, if I'm not mistaken. Did Detective Gregson plan to travel overseas or something? The date on this passport is... What's wrong? October 31st, the day before the incident. What? Well, there's our evidence. Passport, a passport owned by Detective Gregson, issued for the day before the incident, and the destination is France. Did Detective Gregson go to France the day before the incident? How do I examine this? Okay, I'm sorry, when I initially did this, it was very touchy about me doing this part of the examination, so hopefully this will be okay. There seems to be a big scratch here. It's sliced through the leather and dug into the metal underneath. In order to leave such a big scratch on a metal trunk, we can assume that it must have taken quite a blow. How could such a deep scratch have been made? Then we got that, and then on the other side we have more concerning things. This dark stain might be... Yes, it's likely a blood stain. Blood? So that must mean that this trunk was at the scene of the crime when the detective-sama was killed. That's what we can conclude. The fact that Gina-san was carrying something like this around. I like how she never pointed out that blood stain. Like, there's like physical evidence all over this thing and she didn't point it out. Maybe she thought it was a sauce stain from his fish and chips? I guess? But fish and chips usually comes with tartar sauce, isn't it? Okay, anyway. Let's present. I believe this is the passport, so we're gonna present that.
This is a passport issued to the victim. The date it was issued for is October 31st. What?
That's exactly one day before the incident. Detective Gregson wasn't even in the Great British Empire. Nice.
Order! Order! The destination was France. This is indeed an official document.
The day before the steamship, the RFS bar block arrived in the Great British Empire. There's no comma, sorry. It stopped over in France. According to my father, who was on board, it stopped at Dunkirk Harbor.
France. What on earth was the victim doing there?
I should have known, Naruhodō Ryūnosuke. I never imagined you'd even manage to get your hands on his passport. Quite the surprise.
Huh? Well, wait. Did you already know? If you already knew, why would you... Ugh, this boy!
The prosecution's fundamental plan of action is all determined by the prosecutor's office. The day before the incident, the victim was investigating the black market at a club in London. That was the conclusion the prosecutor's office was led to based on the report from Scotland Yard. But personally, I couldn't agree with that conclusion. For some reason, the prosecutor's office was trying to obscure a certain fact.
What?
Now that the prosecutor's office claim has crumbled, I can finally indicate the truth.
This sassy boy, he just went along with the office until the evidence went out and he says, finally, I can do the shit I really want to do!
What do you think you're playing at, Prosecutor Sogi?
The court is a garden of judgment made for finding the truth. That's why I intend to present the information that I know.
That seems to have been your intention all along, Prosecutor Sogi.
The reason that Detective Gregson disappeared and was on a steamship bound for France was in order to fulfill his mission as the Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper?
Order! Order! What are you talking about, Prosecutor Sogi?
During yesterday's trial, the prosecution made the following claim. Detective Gregson was investigating the identity of the Grim Reaper. And that's when he located that hideout. That's why he was killed. Yes, by none other than the Grim Reaper. However, the truth was, it was the other way around.
The other way around?
Detective Gregson wasn't investigating the Grim Reaper. Gregson himself was the Grim Reaper's pawn.
So then, his mission?
Naturally, it would have been assassination. Baruch Van Zieks had never harmed anyone himself as the Grim Reaper. Whenever any of the victims were killed, he always had an alibi. Which means that he must have had an accomplice doing his dirty work for him.
And you intend to claim that the accomplice was Detective Gregson?
Hold it! What are you all blabbing about? There's no way my boss would ever do something like that!
However, if we assume that, everything makes sense.
But...
Detective Gregson-sama was acting as the Grim Reaper's pawn. That was the fact that we uncovered as well. But as for the true identity of the Grim Reaper who was giving Detective Gregson his orders, it definitely wasn't Lord Van Zieks. Someone else was the Grim Reaper. Lord Baruch Van Zieks wasn't the Grim Reaper.
Well, I suppose as his lawyer, you have no choice but to say that.
Besides, even if we say for the sake of argument that Detective Gregson was the Grim Reaper's pawn, we can't say for certain that his goal in going to the RFS bar or block was assassination.
Oh? And what makes you say that?
It's simple. That night on the RFS bar or block, no one ended up dead due to assassination. Professor Mikotoba and Judge Jigoku were on that steamship too. If there had been a murder on board, they definitely would have mentioned it to us. What are you laughing at?
It's as you say. There were no mysterious deaths aboard that steamship. But it seems as though you don't yet realize. That's precisely why Detective Gregson was killed.
What?
Detective Gregson headed for the RFS Barra block in order to carry out his assassination mission. However, he ended up failing to accomplish that mission.
He failed.
It seems that there's an important fact here that you're still unaware of.
What's that? An important fact?
Witness, Detective Gina Lestrade.
What?
In regards to the victim's notebook that you read for us earlier, what was written in it was not information about any secret investigations. It was the plans for all the murders that the Grim Reapers committed over the past 10 years.
That's a lie! Even if all the people who got done in were all bad guys, I just can't believe that my boss was the Grim Reaper!
Gina-sama.
There's no doubt that Tobias Gregson was involved in those plans. Even if you're still an apprentice, you must have heard something from the detective as well.
I don't know a thing! I don't believe you!
Testify as a detective. This is the best thing you can do for your boss now.
Oh my god, poor Gina!
In that case, witness, the court orders you to testify now. Testify about the facts recorded in Detective Gregson's notebook.
The Grim Reaper's notebook.
This notebook contains all the Grim Reaper's deeds for the past 10 years. There are dates, places, names and stuff. The final date is October 31st. The final place was the Barra block, and the name of the target. The name of the target was someone who escaped the Grim Reaper's judgment 10 years ago. But the boss didn't do it! He was just investigating the Grim Reaper!
Witnesses are not to state their opinions on the stand. You will testify only about the facts.
Poor Gina-san. She looks like she's in pain.
Well, surely you understand now, Naruhodō Ryūnosuke.
Understand what?
In that notebook, along with a final location, was also the name of his final target. There's no way anyone but an associate of the Grim Reaper could know such information.
Oh boy.
So then, just who was this final target?
Detective Lestrade, go ahead and read the name. The name written next to the note reading Barra block.
Huh? How do I read this?
Gina-san only just finished learning how to read.
That's not the problem, Naruhodō! This name doesn't belong to an English person. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
It's not an English person. It's on the bar block, and we know at least 2 Japanese people that were on the ship going to England. It's not an English person?
Seishiro Jigoku, I guess?
What? What did she just... Jigoku Seishiro? It can't be. Judge Jigoku-sama?
Seishiro Jigoku. You're quite right. It's not an English person's name.
But we met him! It's Judge Jigoku, here in London. How can he be an assassin's target?
As I already said, the Grim Reaper failed. Detective Gregson allowed his target to escape and return to England. But the Grim Reaper couldn't allow such failure. That's why the detective was murdered, and by the Grim Reaper's own hands. And the Grim Reaper in question is the defendant, Baroque Van Zeeks.
Indeed. It does seem to make sense.
Asogi, have you planned for the trial to go this way since the very beginning? So are you looking for the truth like you say you are, Asogi, or are you just trying to make Baroque burn? Because I don't know. Oh, speak of the devil. I'm gonna just chill at the witness. I'm gonna put my leg on the witness stand. Okay. For the impropriety of partaking of the Lord's chalice from the defendant's seat, I beg your indulgence. Lord Van Zeeks.
The defendant is not permitted to speak freely. Stand down at once.
As for whether or not I am the Grim Reaper, I will allow the court to decide. There's one thing I can say for certain. And that's that this girl here is no proper detective.
What gives? Anyway, I'm more of an inspector. Got it?
All you've done is repeat the information you were given and read the notebook that was handed to you. That doesn't qualify as testimony. I suppose the rest will go according to the prosecutor's plan, won't it? I can't pretend I don't understand how you feel, believing me to be an unforgivable criminal. After all, I'm the Grim Reaper who previously sent your father to the gallows. However, you yourself seem qualified to be an excellent Grim Reaper, at least on par with me. Think that you would try to use a worthless testimony like this to accuse me.
What?
Naruhodō-sama, this could be the chance we've been waiting for. Your Honor, please allow the defendant to speak. He's the involved party, the one who knows the most important information necessary for this cross-examination. Oh, God, that's so ominous and also really funny.
Very well. I'll give special permission. The defendant may remain on the stand and make his statement.
For the impropriety of expressing my respect to the Supreme Court's just spirit, I beg your indulgence.
Don't raise your glass to me. Now then, defense, you will conduct your cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Looks like we're pressing a whole lot. That might be the only thing I'm gonna have time for, is just doing this statement, so let's get to it. Looks like we're pressing almost all of them. In other words, Detective Gregson was acting as the Grim Reaper.
Don't you start too! That's not the only possibility here! He might have been investigating the Grim Reaper in secret and written the results of the investigation in his notebook or something!
If I may. When I began to be known as the Grim Reaper, I deliberately refrained from rejecting the name. Thought that if that name had the power to suppress crime in London, then that was fine. And that's when you also began investigating the Grim Reaper privately. I have confidence in the conclusion I drew. Gregson was a member of the Grim Reaper.
What the heck do you mean, a member?
Every one of the Grim Reaper's victims were shrewd, big-time villains. His deeds can't be the work of a single individual. We must conclude that it is, in fact, an organization.
And is the central figure of that organization not you?
I employed a private eye in order to observe Gregson's actions on a regular basis. Therefore, I was able to get my hands on the final location of his mission, which was recorded in this notebook. And that was the bar block? I got it into my head that it was a club here in London and went alone that day to investigate. And that's when you were seen by the members of the club. Naturally, Detective Gregson was never at that club.
At the time, the detective was headed for the steamship that had made port in France. Those movements of his are confirmed by the passport found in the trunk he was carrying.
Excuse me? Did he just say the passport found in the trunk he was carrying? I don't recall at any point when I was looking at this script mention where I found that passport. Asogi! What trunk are you referring to?
Continue the testimony with what was written in the notebook.
Fine.
Is something wrong, Naruhodō-sama? Seemed a little preoccupied for a moment just now. Oh, it's nothing. Did I imagine that? No, you did not. How does he know the trunk? We're not gonna get to that until later, apparently, because I'm still pressing stuff, but oh my god, what is... Dates, places, names, and stuff. What kind of stuff do you mean?
Like there's always one more name next to the victim's name.
One more name?
I think I told you this yesterday, but the same name is written in here over and over again.
Would that name happen to be Anne Sasha?
Oh, right! You knew her, didn't you, Naruhodō?
No, please, don't make it sound like we're friends or something. He's been proven he was accused as a murderer thanks to her. So no, I wouldn't want to be associated with her. And Sasha. That's the name of the murderer.
What? A murderer?
Gregson's role was to be the brains behind the planning. He thoroughly investigate the target, then decide when, where, and who to use in order to take them out.
So the one who did the actual deed was someone else. If that's true, then I must agree. It is rather like an organization.
Then this passport. The passport holder may be accompanied by up to one other person. The person who accompanied him.
Naturally, it was the murderer who was to rob Mr. Jigoku Seshiro of his life.
Gina-san, the last bits in the notebook. The bar block and Jigoku Seshiro. What's the other name written next to them?
Actually, that's the only place that doesn't have a name.
What?
I guess this thing is called a question mark? There's only one of those written next to them.
In other words, Gregson himself didn't know the identity of the assassin.
But Gregson was the one who was supposed to be formulating the plans. Ah, this seems awfully significant. An unnamed killer, huh? And it says that the name of the Grim Reaper's target was Jigoku Seshiro?
That's what's written here! Jigoku is such a weird name. The only one I've heard as weird as it is Naruhodō.
Well, I mean, we are from the same country.
Mr. Jigoku is a judge in the Great Japanese Empire.
I remember him. He studied abroad in our country 16 years ago.
Jigoku studied international law and exchanged under Lord Vortex at the time.
That bearded youth was quite an astounding man.
I guess Judge Jigoku learned a lot from Lord Vortex.
As I recall, he returned to the Great Japanese Empire 10 years ago.
10 years ago. After that case, correct?
Precisely. Their return to Japan was decided swiftly due to the influence of the professor's case. What could his name be doing in the detective's notebook?
This seems like it's getting kind of personal, but it's not my concern, so I'm gonna continue now, okay?
What do you mean? How is Judge Jigoku a bad guy?
Don't ask me! How should I know?
Come to think of it, my dad said this. That Jigoku-sama once found himself in the defendant's chair here in the Great British Empire. I believe it was at the time of the professor's trial. You're right.
Jigoku made a forceful case up on the witness stand, trying to lighten Asogi Genshin's punishment. He was so worked up at the time that he ended up breaking the witness stand. Additionally, because he used words that brought humiliation on the Great British Empire, he ended up being prosecuted.
What a mess. Just now, I remembered. I was in charge of prosecuting that trial. Huh? You, Lord Van Zeeks? It was connected to the professor, a sort of secondary trial. He paid reparations for the witness stand and was declared not guilty.
Yes, that's it.
What?
Don't tell me you've forgotten your own rule, defendant. Those who receive not guilty verdicts in trials prosecuted by the Grim Reaper never make it through alive.
Oh, right. What? Then, no way. Are you saying that the reason Judge Jigoku was targeted was...
When the trial ended, Judge Jigoku returned to Japan at once. Therefore, the Grim Reaper was unable to harm him. However, 10 years later, he returned to London as a target. And that's the end of it. The Grim Reaper's determination, I mean.
For smashing the witness stand? He's getting killed for... I'm sorry, what? Ridiculous. Who would try to kill him just for that?
The Grim Reaper became ridiculous the moment he decided to murder those who had been declared not guilty. The rules the Grim Reaper holds himself to cannot be comprehended by the likes of us.
But...
Objection! I've bloody had it!
Gina-san.
You won't keep spewing self-indulgent crap about how the boss was laying groundwork to have people killed! Naruhodō!
Yes?
Why won't you say anything? Where's your usual objection?
Huh?
Do what you always do, and find a contradiction. Someone here is lying. Expose it! For my boss. Please, Naruhodō.
That statement brings shame upon the testimony. I knew a little street rat pickpocket wasn't fit to be made a detective. As soon as this trial concludes, your ID will be revoked. Am I understood?
What the hell? This world is nothing but lies. I'm the one who wants out.
Gina-sama. Just now, Gina-san's words steeled my resolve. Huh? Actually, there was one thing in this cross-examination. One statement that I just can't help being bothered by. Naruhodō-sama, what on earth is it? I can't let the wailing of Gina-san's heart be in vain. Unfortunately, I know, unfortunately, I have to leave you guys on a cliffhanger. I think we all know exactly what Naruhodō is thinking about the statement in question that Asogi mentioned a while ago. Although I could be wrong. There might have been another one. I don't know. I'm not looking ahead on the script right now, but I feel like that is probably going to be what we're going to be hitting in the next video. So, I'm sorry. We are out of time. We are way over. So, we'll just have to find a conclusion to this in the next video. I'll see you guys then. I don't recall at any point when I was looking at this script mention where I found that passport. Asogi. What trunk are you referring to?
I'm referring to the trunk with all that junk. Yeah, I said it.